For this project tonight, I am using 5 different colors in my palette. I am going to use my Liquitex Basics, and I'm using a dark magenta, a regular magenta, a lighter pink, a orangey yellow color, and I'm also using my teal color to kind of offset all of that. You do not have to use my exact colors. You can go with anything you want, but that is the palette I am using tonight. If you've taken my classes before, you know that one of the things I love to do at the beginning as I'm getting into my process is I use my non-dominant hand. So for me, that's my left hand. And I just do some pre-writing right on my canvas, even whether it's a regular canvas or a piece of cardboard or a piece of paper. I use my left hand to just kind of scribble out my thoughts. There was a time when I was really, really sick and I wrote a lot of sad things or angry things or confused things. And I'm really happy to announce that I'm actually feeling really great. And so I'm going to scribble a little bit of that onto my canvas tonight. You can do whatever you want. It's not going to show in the end. It's going to all be painted over. So this is an opportunity for you to really share your emotions and not have anybody see it. You can swear, you can write whatever you want. There's no consequences.
So I'm just going to tell you that mine says, I am so grateful that I have healed enough that I feel supported in all endeavors. That is a huge thing for me. I was so sick for so long, I couldn't even see the way out. And so that is just really huge progress. And it's great that I get to look at it, and it's making me even a little emotional. I'm getting a little weepy about it. I just never thought I'd be here. I really didn't. So this is all me, and you can take as long as you need to do your writing, as long as you like. And now I'm going to tell you, I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of each of these colors into my palette. It doesn't have to be on a palette. I actually sometimes use backs of Wegmans containers or wax paper, or frankly, whatever I have handy is what I kind of use.
I'm using an assortment of brushes tonight, and a roller too I have handy in case I decide I want to use that. But basically I'm just grabbing a few different brushes so that I can make different marks, and so I don't have to wash my brush in between. I want to keep my brush pretty dry for this. So I have like a flat brush and a beveled brush. I've got my roller, I've got a round brush, and I have like a really inexpensive brush that's loose. They all just make different strokes, and that's what I just like to have a bunch of things handy. And for the first part of the process, I am taking my dry brush and I am just taking random colors. I'm starting with this yellowy orange, and I'm putting them wherever I want on the paper that I'm using. I'm using like an acrylic paper. And honestly, I have no rhyme or reason. So I just want you to remember, like when you were back in elementary school, when you just grabbed a brush and just played. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all going to change. It's just our first step. And so just really enjoy the process. You can use your right hand, you can use your left hand, you can use your fingers, you can use a roller, you can scrape things in. I honestly, I had no plan with this. I just was making random marks and having a good time. Once you've finished your painting and you've really got the paint on thick, you really want to use a hair dryer or give it some time to dry, because we don't want to smear the paint or scratch it off.
Just to skin.
Now, this is an interesting point because you can decide if you want to, you can decide which side you want your painting to be the facing, which is the right way up. So I kept mine in the same acclimation just because it was taped down, but this is an opportunity to decide how, if you want to turn it around in landscape or portrait mode. Then I grabbed a white colored pencil, and I decided that I was going to make just a very rough outline of a person's face. And so all I'm really doing here is deciding the width of the face that I would want. You can make it as skinny or as wide as you want. And I'm just making almost like a big wide U shape. Everything's going to change, so you don't have to get hung up with this at all. But I just wanted to make a little bit of an outline for myself. And then I added 2 little marks just where the neck will eventually be. And I just like to remind everybody that everything is going to change. This is just a very first layer. We're going to have layers and layers on this painting. And to start out, we're going to focus on the bottom half of the painting. It doesn't matter what you have there. We're going to start to create something that looks like flesh tones.
So now I'm going to go back to my palette, and I'm going to grab several different colors that I want to make my face, my flesh tones. So I'm going to grab my pink again. I'm going to grab something that is maybe a little bit more neutral. So I have this Naples yellow color that's going to be skin, and I'm going to also grab this unbleached titanium. This is very organic and loose, what we're doing here.
Basically, this is the part of the show where I remind everybody just to stay with me and trust the process. So you can really use any color that you want to be your flesh tone, but I am using some Naples yellow and also some titanium white and a little bit of an unbleached white as well, unbleached color. But you could use anything. If you want to make a darker skin tone, you can use more of a brown. If you want, you could even use blue. Anything you want will work like a skin tone. And I'm just laying my Naples yellow here. It's just the first pass. And it's okay if you want to leave some of the undertone or you really want to make it dark. It doesn't matter at this layer. I'm putting it in pretty dark, and I'm just establishing where the face is going to actually be. By the way, you might notice that I am occasionally wiping my brush on another sheet of paper. I just happen to have a little bit of extra watercolor paper around, just a little edge. And rather than waste that little corner and throw it away, I decided to blot my brush on it. And you will see at the end that I actually will turn that little scrap into something that I can use. So if you see it in here, it's not anything, it's not part of the process. It's just me using a scrap of paper rather than using a cloth to blot my brush, which I normally do. And next I'm grabbing my pinkier tone. You can really use any color that you want. I'm not trying to completely cover that Naples yellow. I just want to add to it. So it's creating my own shade, my own flesh tone here.
And this is not wet for me. I'm doing this all with dry. So I'm flicking it around, and really it's quite dry. So it's drying very fast for me. It depends on your conditions in your studio or your home, how quickly it's going to dry. Oh, and I got to get the neck too. Her neck, it's got it. Well, not necessarily. The neck could be in something else. So, couldn't go this route. I don't know which way I want to go yet. Just keep it loose. Don't get in your head about what the heck is this? Oh my gosh. Doesn't look like much. Okay, that's fine.
I decided to broaden the face a little bit, not for like any good reason. It just didn't seem like the neck seemed like it was off center for the face. So I just broadened the face a little bit. And then I had to give a little bit more time for this to dry. So you can use your hair dryer or step away for it for a little while, but you want it to be dry before you start the next step, which is drawing with a pencil. Once everything is dry, the next step is to think about where you're going to place the eyes. And in a normal face, the proportions are like a third, a third, a third. In the upper third, you would put the eyes. In the middle third, you would put the nose. And in the lower third, you would put the mouth. However, because I like to make my characters more whimsical looking, I use more whimsical proportions. And that means I imagine where the head is, and then I draw a line where that right in the middle of where the face would be, and then I draw the eyes right on that line, which is a little bit lower than where adult eyes would be. It keeps things looking childish and really cute and whimsical rather than more serious. So that's where we're going to start, is just drawing a little bit of a line that kind of cuts that space in half. And then I'm going to aim for something this time where the eyes are really going to be like quite wide set. So I'm scratching into the paint right now. I'm scratching into the paint with my pencil, and I'm just drawing something that looks vaguely like an eye shape. And the eyes do not have to be the same size. They totally can be, as I'm just getting a shape here. So if you make a mistake, you can add more paint and go right over it. So there's no messing this up really. I'm just scraping into it to kind of create where my eyes are going to be. And the way I do my eyes, in case you're not remembering, is, and I hope you can see this because I'm just using a pencil, but let's see, is it dry enough for me to shift to a marker yet? Not yet. So over here, I'll use this one because it's a little bit drier over here. I'm going to make that hooded part of the eye so it almost looks like a little rainbow over the top of the eye. And then I make a nice big half circle that's like for a pupil. And all this will change when we get the paint back to the paint, but I just like to have a guideline. Then I make the iris part of the eye and the pupil. And inside of the pupil is where I make that little reflection mark. You can make it oval, circle, however you like. So there's just a little bit of a placement thing for me, because I will be going over that in a minute with black. Then I'm going to do the same thing with this eye. Coming up over here. Give it that half circle, an inner circle, and that little bit of a reflection that should be vaguely in the same kind of place. Great. At this point, my thing's pretty dry. So I'm going to grab my gel pen, which I always have on hand. And I'm going to go right up and over my paint. My paint does really nicely with these gel roll pens. Some people might be like, oh no, it's not working. And that's okay. You can use something else. Just find something that works for you. Just to get because we're going to be painting over this. So none of that has to be so precise. It's just a guideline. Because if you hated where your eye is right now, all you have to do is paint over it with that same flesh tone and go right over it again with your marker, with your pen. So nothing is so precious at this point. None of this even existed a couple minutes ago, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that for this moment. I'm gonna grab my, I actually want to I'm going to use a colored pencil now because I just have one. It's just right in front of me. That's the only reason I'm grabbing this is a colored pencil here. I'm going to just make a little bit of darkness just for myself under the eye because I'm going to eventually paint over that anyway. So it's going to be gone, but I just want to even things out a little bit. You don't have to do this step. I'm just adding a little bit of darkness for myself. And I definitely am going to want for there to be that little corner of the eye thing. The duct. That one out. Okay, great. I'm pretty pleased with that. I also just realized I forgot about ears.
So I'm going to think about ears for a minute. Ears are, not that I forgot, but I usually have to get the eyes placed. So the ears are kind of, if they're whimsical ears, like I like to do, they kind of are, the ears are kind of bisected by the eye or whatever. So I just make, honestly, my ears just are the same color paint and they just are little protuberances. So there's my ear, and you can actually even make a little line with the back of your brush. If you drag down, it should give you a little bit of a, you can see what's underneath it. And if you can't, that's okay too. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All right, I'm very happy with the placement of those eyes. Next, we're gonna think about the placement of the nose and the mouth. So I like to do the nose next. I'm gonna stand up here and see what I got going here. So for my nose, the nose is usually, I'm gonna grab a pencil just so you can understand. I'm gonna bisect the face. The nose is centered between the eyes, and you can decide if you want it to be a really long nose, a short nose, but however long you want it to be. I tend to squish my faces a little bit. So I'm gonna make this nose here. And the way I'm making the nose is I'm marking it with like a very open U shape, just an open U shape. And then off of that U shape, I'm making like a little black circle and a little black circle. And honestly, I'm just gonna grab my gel pen and put it in darker because I'm just marking it. Remember, we're gonna go over this with paint. So I'm just marking it for myself. It's just a hint of nose, you might say. Just a little bit of a hint. And you can see it's like, it gives you the idea of a nose. It's plenty. It reads like a nose. We know what that is. If you want the nose to continue and you want it to be a little bit more literal, you can do a little round shape off of each side. So here, I'll just do it this time. And I haven't decided if I'm going to want it to stay. So I just gave her a little bit of a wider nose. And that looks fantastic to me. Oh, she's cute already with her. Wait till you see how this is going to turn out. Okay, now I'm going to address the mouth. The mouth usually is the bottom third. My proportions are a little bit squished, but that's fine. And I want it to be not too far under the nose, right? Not too far under the nose. So I tend to make, my trick is, I tend to make a little bit of a mark, a little bit of left to the nose, little bit left of the nose and a little bit to the right of the nose. And my job here is just to create a little bit of an open M, a very loose M, and I'll go over that so you can see it a little bit better. Just as that's the center line between the lips. That's the center line between the lips. So it doesn't have to be, that's not the face necessarily, the way it's not gonna look like that. That's just the space between the lips. And then over top, and I'm just using a pencil here, but you could use anything. I'm making a tighter M, and then underneath it, I kind of make another U, or you could make a little W if you want her to have a little divot in her lip. So I hope you can see that. I kept that a little bit light because I'm gonna use paint there, and I don't necessarily want her to have like tons of darkness around her lips. But that is pretty much the way I start with this. Now, because I've got all these different colors in this painting, I got to think about how I'm going to tie this face together with this craziness that's happening. I know for sure that I'm going to want this teal color to come into this girl's eyes. So I'm going to actually grab a colored pencil here. I have a teal pencil. I have a couple of, me, I got, my eyes are usually 3 different colors. I'm going to see if I can actually use my colored pencil over the top. If I can, that's great. If I can't, I'm going to end up doing it in paint. So check it out. I can't. So I'm not going to fret about it. I'm going back to my paint here. Let me find a good brush here. You might need a smaller brush, but I don't get all worried about this. I just want to I like to get the eyes right before I do more skin. So I'm going back into the eye. And I'm going to drop in around that pupil some color. And it doesn't matter if you go over it, like I'm not being careful because the pupil will be black. And so I'll be going over that. So I'm gonna just grab some of that teal color, and I can still see my mark underneath for placement. And like I said, this is not perfect, but that's where the eyes are going to be. So I'm gonna let that dry for a minute, just a little. And I'm also going to grab, just like I do with my colored pencils, I'm gonna grab a couple of other colors of green or blue. So here's what I got. I've got a little bit of a primary blue. I'm gonna drop a little bit of that primary blue in there, not worrying about that I'm going over, not worrying that I just lost some of the green. I'm just dropping a little bit of that in there. Just dropping it in there. I'm gonna let that be for a minute. Get my brush. And I'm gonna grab a third color, which was a little bit of a blue, like a light blue. And it doesn't matter. I'm just picking a color that's not, a couple colors that aren't in the background, but I definitely don't want that teal to come back. So I'm just gonna drop a little bit of this blue color in there. I'm gonna let that dry a minute, and then I'm gonna go back in with my teal again. And I'm gonna just drop it on top. So all these colors are blending for me. On the eye, it's all blending. Beautiful.
Now, there are many ways to do the next step, but I'm in a very painterly mood tonight, and so I'm going to use paint. But you can use a marker or really a caran d'Ache, anything you've got. I'm going to grab a skinny little brush, and I'm going to go in around the eyes, and I'm going to add some white around her eyes. It's okay if some of the colors of the eye blend into the whites. It doesn't matter at all, but we want to make it a little bit whiter rather than the beige of the skin tone. So that's just with the tiniest little bit of white all around the eyes. And that's how you can kind of correct things. So if you got a little bit out with the pupils or the irises, you can kind of correct that with the white. And I'm not worrying if there's a little bit of blue in the white. Like I like that. I want the eyes to have a whole bunch of different colors in them. So some of mine has a little bit more blue happening in there. And that I actually want to happen. So that's great. Cool. So her eyes are very outlined right now. Great. Next up, I'm going to grab my black paint and I am going to drop a pupil into this girl's eyes. Now, the only thing that I mention, and you do not have to do it this way, it's fine if you just do a whole black, piece and fill in the white reflection later. But I like to leave it I leave it alone and then I add a little white blot later. So you can just fill in the whole pupil and then go over it with white later, or you can leave a little circle to, for reference, whichever you like. But what you'll find is the second those pupils go in, the painting really starts to come to life, which I love. I also add a little bit of black around her nose with my black paint as well, just defining some of the darks. I also will put a little bit in her ears and just some of the darker places.
You can kind of see how those eyes are getting born. This is just layer one, because eventually we're going to be doing colored pencil over top when it dries really nicely. We will be doing We'll be doing markers on this. There's just tons of other steps, but you're seeing the faces coming together, right? You're seeing it. All right, take a breath. Whew, take a breath. This girl needs eyebrows. And that is when we have to really think about like the expression that you want. And I just want her to have like a sweet little expression. So I'm going to come way over to the side here. And I'm going to just, with my little pencil, I'm just going to pop up 2 little eyebrows. And it's up to you how wide you make them or how arched you make them. But I'm just trying things out, because if I don't like them, I can still paint over things. So that one I didn't love so much. So I'm going to angle that a little bit. I'm just giving myself a line for reference. So I like that one and I like that one. Great. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. Cool. All right. I'm going to grab. So I'm pretty happy with her eyes for the moment. Now I want to mess with her skin a little bit. So I'm going back into this girl with my brush, one of my brushes. And I'm going to add some, now this is, I can't remember what this is called. There's a technique here, but I'm adding some water to this. It's called, it's like a layering thing. So I want still some of this darker color to show, but now I'm going over it and this is about layers here. So now I'm taking this pinkier color and I'm laying it in all around her skin. So this is watered down. You don't have to worry about going over the lips. You can go over them or not go over them, but this is I can't believe I can't remember the name of the technique. It's, it just shows you how I'm self-taught. It's like, I'm using the watercolor, or I'm using the acrylics like watercolor. So it is quite wet, it's thinning it down. And so it's giving me I still see the color that's underneath, but I'm lightening it just by adding this pink, and it's very forgiving when you do this. So don't worry about it. Just give yourself a little bit of a lighter layer, and I'm actually going to go right over the nostril that I did. So I'm going over that. So it's still there. I can see it, but it's just a hint down. I've toned it down a little bit. We'll be doing this a few times, this technique, with different shades. I'm just going, so I still have the color that was underneath showing, but now it's a little pinkier than browner. And you can tell that because of her lips have that other color. How fun. Fun to watch these people be born. So I'm not unhappy with this flesh color that I've got going here. So I'm just going to build it up a little bit more using another light layer. Just a little, just to even it out. I'm not worrying about her neck because I'm going to probably put some clothes on her. Like I'm going to probably do some collage down here. But if you want the neck to be exposed, you might want to do the neck too. So I'm just not going to worry about it, because for me, that's going to end up a whole different. I'm just going to end up doing some clothes on her. All right, I'm ready for next part. Ooh, this is coming along. Okay. So it's bothering me that she doesn't have a dark outline at this point. So now I'm just going around her face with a dark pencil. It's just bothering me. I should have started with my normal thing, which is a dark pencil, but I'm doing it now. Doesn't matter. Can do it anytime, can fix anything. So I just like that. That just feels better to me. And I might add a little bit of darkness inside of her ear. And I might even do it with my left hand, just so it's loose and scribbly. The most important thing is you just keep your hand moving, so you stay out of your head. All right. I am liking my girl here. So I'm putting in a guideline for her brow, which I could still see, even though I had painted over it, I could still see it. So I'm giving a guideline with pencil. Look how cute her little expression is going to be. And I'm always kind of refining as I go. So just tracing, moving things, even a little shadow under her lips with my pencil. It may or may not show like this, probably won't, but it's just my process. When I don't know what to do, I just keep tracing things. I just keep tracing them. And the inspiration comes. But she's looking pretty cute. All right, I am ready at this point to get into these eyes a little bit. And that's what I was saying. This is totally up to you. I was thinking that I was going to do it in like I think I'm going to grab a little bit of this blue that I had put in her eyes first, like, or not that blue, this primary blue. I'm just going to try a few things here, guys. I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking for, but I want it to be a watery eyeliner, you know how, or eyeshadow. You know how I always do that around the eyes? If you don't like that look that I do, if you don't like that watery eye, you do not have to do it. So I just put some paint in my palette, and watch, I'm putting some water in there to really water it down. I'm making this very wet. And now I'm going to drop it over this girl's eye, staying over the lid, and working pretty quickly here, because I just want that water to spread organically over my canvas. You can see I kind of got it going there. And I'm just going to leave it alone. Maybe a little bit more over here. I'm just leaving that alone. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. It might even be good if you just take wet, like your wet, but see mine already, this is probably going to be better now. I just wet the brush. It's really almost all water that I'm using here. It's the better way to go. So just let the water do the work. It looks way better when I just let the water do it. So just let that move around as necessary. I'm liking that. So it's going to take a bit for that paint to dry there, for sure, because it was really, really wet, but we want it to just leave. We want to just leave it alone. Like, even though I just touched it, you want to leave it alone because you want it to just give you a loose, it's going to dry in like a particular kind of way. So just let it do what it needs to do. And now I'm going to grab this other color. Maybe I can do this in pencil. I wonder if I can do this in pencil. I'm experimenting. See what happens if oh yeah, I can do this in pencil. I could probably also do this in my Caran d'Ache, would be probably even better. But I'm gonna try it in pencil first with my purple. Nah, it's not working. The pencils aren't working. It's too wet still. So I'm gonna grab my purple. And I'm gonna do that same thing. I'm gonna wet it down. And I'm probably should wait until it's a little drier, but I'm gonna just try this. I'm gonna get it nice and wet. And I'm just gonna drop some of this purple under her eye. Under her eye. Remember, this will dry lighter, so don't be scared of it. And I'm even coming up here a little bit where I have the blue. I'm gonna smoosh that around a little bit. I gotta go clean my water a bit. That is one thing that you have to be really careful of, is make sure your water is clean. Otherwise you're gonna get brown or smudgies. So I'm just keeping that wet and watercolor-ish with my acrylics. And I'm doing the same thing on her other eye. Just gonna drop a little purple around. So I'm kind of Mardi Gras-ing this girl up, I guess, unintentionally, but it looks like what seems to be happening here. And it's not gonna matter because it's gonna dry light, and then we're gonna paint over it, and then we're gonna add more. I'm gonna drop a little bit into her cheek. Like I said, we're gonna be painting over this, so it's gonna get lighter. So I'm not worried about the intensity of the color. But I do want it to look wet and loose. It's a little bit of cheeky color over there.
Next, I'm going to go back to that original magenta color, that dark magenta color, and I'm going to incorporate it a little bit of that into her lips. I use a darker color on the top lip, and then I'll use a little bit of white mixed in with that magenta color to do her bottom lip. I usually use 2 or 3 colors on the lips.
And then I'm gonna pull a little bit of that same lip color, just because I'm being whimsical here. I'm gonna pull a little bit up here around the sides of her face. Maybe even pull a little bit of that purple up. So I'm just moving it around. I didn't get as much on that left side. It's weird. I've got the heater really close to me, so it's drying really funky on this side and a different way over here. Maybe I need to push that back a little bit. All right, so that's drying now, which is fine. It's a little bit deeper. I'll be layering more. That's a good start right there. And then we're going to end up going over this again, going over her skin again, where we just did this painting. So it will, oh, I'm going to put her brow in too with a little bit of this purple. So I'm going to pop her brow in. You don't have to do purple. If you don't like it, you can do black or, any other color. I'm just using it because I had it handy. It's all going to go get painted over anyway. She does look very Mardi Gras. Okay. I'm just putting in some details while I'm waiting for things to dry, kind of tracing over those places of the eye that were a little bit obliterated when I used the white paint. So it's very painterly as far as it's loose, it's not perfect. I'm going to go trace around the outside of her eye a little bit with my black. Just give it that lighter orbit, or that darker orbit, I mean. If yours aren't dry yet, it won't work. So you don't have to be working there. So I'm just playing. I'm really just playing a little bit here. I'm actually trying to do a little bit of this brow with my pencil.
It's sort of scraping off some of the underpainting, so I'm not loving it, but I don't hate it either. So I'm just doing it. Just play. Okay, I'm really liking her. I'm going to take a little bit of a lighter color pink and I'm going to put that into her bottom lip. Just the bottom lip. Just taking a little tiny bit. You can mix the same shade of, or you can grab the same shade of pink that you used on her lips and just add a little bit of white to it. And that's really gonna do the trick for you. That's all I did. That's two colors there. And when this dries, I'm going to go over this again with a dry brush with some of that pink. So it's going to even that out. While I'm waiting for things to dry here, I'm going to start to think about what I'm doing. You must be all like, what is she doing on the top? Like, what is happening up here? So you can really do anything you want. If you want to turn this into like leaves or a headdress or a crown, like you can do anything you want. And there's a part of me that wants to say like, maybe we'll stop there, for tonight, but I want to show you what it is that I'm going to do and why I had you start this a little bit this way. So I'm taking a colored pencil, and now that things are very dry for me, I can actually take a colored pencil and go over those eyes with a slightly lighter blue. And I'm doing that at the bottom of the eye. It doesn't really matter. I'm just adding some extra texture to the eye. So it's got paint and it's got colored pencil. You could also do it with Caran d'Ache. I may actually do some Caran d'Ache over the eye. I'm just playing a little bit here, guys. I wonder what would happen if I used actual watercolor over the acrylic. Actually, kind of curious about that, but something tells me it wouldn't dry very well. So I'm not gonna embark on that right now. Give her a little shadow under that lip. Little nostril. Okay. Still very wet over here. I do not encourage you to do what I'm doing. It's just that it's so wet. I think I'm going to have to try a different course of action here. I don't know, maybe you do too. Now I'm going to just use my finger and smear this around a little bit. So when that dries, I'm going to try something with my Caran d'Ache instead. But it's got to dry. It's pretty close though. Close to dry. I'm going back into my pinky paint that I had before. Wetting it just a little bit. I don't want to completely lose what's going on here. I'm a little nervous about this. I want it to be, yeah, so that's good. So now I'm going over that again, and you can see that it's keeping a little bit of what's underneath there. I'm just smoothing it out a little bit with that pink paint again. So I don't want to do it too heavy, but I just want some of that, just a little bit of that color to show underneath, if that makes sense. Like it's a shadow. So I want to be careful not to completely eliminate it, but those eyes were getting to be a mess. If your eyes aren't a mess, you don't have to do what I'm doing, but my eyes were getting really, really messy. So I'm just kind of going up and over a little bit, smoothing it out. So here I'm going up and over her eye. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. It's really going to tone down that purple, but it will still be there.
it's still there, just as an under color. And I'm just painting around. Don't worry about it. Don't be nervous. And it's okay if the colors are, no one's skin color is one color. So I'm not really trying to create something uniform here. I'm just wanting to make sure that it's, it's even sort of. But I do like that there's different tones here. There's purple, there's even a little bit of green coming through. Everyone's will be a little bit different because we all did different things underneath. You can put on heavier paint. So I'm going to grab a little bit of put a little bit of heavier pink onto her cheeks. It's a little bit more painterly. I'm moving quickly. So you can see that I've softened her eye a little bit. I know it's quick work there, but you can see the purple underneath it still, but it's not as crazy purple because I put some of that pink skin tone over the top again. And I'm going to grab a little bit of white if I can, or maybe some of this. Just put a little bit of this creamy color into her nose a little bit. It's just like where the reflection tends to get. And so I just put a little bit of a cream color there. And I'm going to spread that around a little bit up here. So I'm giving her kind of a wide. This is the first time that I've gone across for her forehead. And that's because now I'm really thinking about her forehead a little bit. That's cute. All right. The next thing that I'm going to show you is going to be crazy. So this is going to be the next step. We're going to think about where you want her hair to be. So it could come around here, so this is like a negative space thing. So I'm going to think about what I want, and what's going to end up happening is I'm going to create some crazy hairstyle up here that's going to be filled with all this crazy color. So to start, sometimes I like to start from the hairline. So I'm going to just go kind of like something like that for her hair. And so I'm just making a crazy hairline. You can see how jumbly and crookedy that is. So it's nothing perfect. And then I'm going to come up over here, and you guys, this is not a thinking thing. This is just a keep your hand moving thing. I'm just making a shape. So you can see I just gave, you can't even see it probably because it's so light, but I just gave it, I just created a shape here with my black pencil. You could do it with a marker if it's easier for you. It doesn't matter. It does not matter at all, because what's going to happen next is we're going to, let me think if I want to do this now or if I want to do this next week. We'll do this now and then we'll get into her hair next week. So get ready. I'm grabbing my black. Some of you have seen me do this before, so you're probably like, know exactly where I'm going with this. I'm going to go right into, okay, hang on, I got to block this. This is the magical part. I made that rough outline here for hair, and it doesn't matter. It's just a weird little shape. It's going to read like hair. This is where some of you maybe remember when we did those flowers one time, we just created we did the negative space of the flowers. So all I'm doing is I'm painting around where I want the hair to be. So I had already created that line, very forgiving. You don't have to be exact with it. So I'm going to go around the outside and you'll see what I'm talking about here. You can make decisions as you go. So I can add or take away. So what I'm going to do here is the whole rest of the painting is going to be, I'm going to paint it in black. Anything that's outside of her hairline is going to be painted black right now. You'll see what happens, how cool this is. So you can see that some of her hairline, I went a little bit too far up with her. I went a little bit too far up with the skin stuff. So I'm just going right back over now with my finger to redefine or give a little bit of, go back in there to pull down that hair. And it's all going to be so cute when it's done. But we're going to have to keep going with this next week for sure. But I'm not done. I'm still going here. We got time. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to go with my Caran d'Ache for a minute. Now, I didn't tell you guys you have to have this, and some of you may have them and some of you may not, and it is okay either way. But I'm going to try something because I want to see what happens if I use my Caran d'Ache. These are Caran d'Ache Neo Color Aquarelles. They are water activated, or you can use them as is. So I want to see what happens if I take this purple and go over. I like this. I have a lot more control with this aquarelle. So I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to use this purple. You could do this with any kind of an oil pastel.
I'm really liking how this aquarelle is working, and so I used this dark aquarelle, then I used a lighter purple aquarelle, then I used a blue, a lighter blue, and a white to just go all around her eyes. I used my fingers to smudge it together, and it's just giving this very soft look that I really, really like.
And I'm going to continue to pull some of that purple up and around what I'm calling the hairline, because I'm thinking about it like it's a hairline. So I'm just pulling that up and around a little bit to define it a little bit more. Maybe a little bit under the chin. So just play with the intensity of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. You know how people always put that white over the brow? I'm putting that in with a little bit of an aquarelle just to give it a little bit of a pop. And while you're working on that, I'm going to go in over the eyelid here, and I'm going to just put in a little bit more white over the eyelid because I'm going to want to put in some lashes, and I can't do that over aquarelle. So I'm just going to give it a quick hit of that white so that I can put some eyelashes over that, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. I'm also going to put in that reflection spot since it's bothering me. That immediately makes the eyes pop out and appear more lively. All right. The first thing that I want to do tonight, guys, and this may not be an issue for you, but I did not like how I had this big purple line. It was just way too dark for me. And I think I'm even going to feather out some of this purple that's under her eyes. It's just kind of intense when I look at it. I didn't remember that it was that bold. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of this pinky color, just a little bit of it. It's kind of the same thing that I used before in her skin. So it's a little bit of pink and it's a little bit of parchment color. That's kind of what I used for her flesh. and I'm just mixing it around a little bit. And I'm actually adding the tiniest dot of water. I just dabbed one dip of water. It's very, very little. And all I'm gonna do here, it's just a little bit of color here. And all I'm doing is I'm going up and into where it was before. And I hope you can kind of see this, that it's just, it minimizes some of that purple that I had going here, that harsh line that's kind of here, demarking. I don't know. It's a little bit much. So I'm going to wipe it out a little bit. And then what I'm going to do with the same brush, now that it's kind of drier, I'm just going to kind of dry brush it across her forehead so that if there is any kind of a line there, then it's going to just smooth it around. So that's how I even out skin tone. And I'm going to do a little bit down here as well. So same thing. I just grabbed a teeniest bit of water into my leftover color here. I'm just going to come up a little bit. Hopefully you'll see this. It's quite light because it's got a little bit of water in it, but it just seemed like a little bit intense to me. So and it cleans things up if you have any blotches or anything like that. So I'm just kind of smearing it around and smoothing it out a little.
I also added a little bit of that wash over the eyes on the top just to tone it down a little bit. It doesn't matter because in the end, I'm gonna make them a blue again. I also decided to grab my Posca marker and start to think about what details I want. So the first thing I decided to do is to kind of outline her whole entire head, including the hair, including her face, and it just adds a little bit of a contrast against the black background. You don't have to follow the true line. You can actually just make it go wherever you want. And I do leave a little tiny bit of black space between the line and the and the face, so I'm not right up against the face, just to create a little bit of contrast.
Since I have my Posca, I'm going to go into this eye a little bit with my Posca and just maybe whiten things up a little bit, like in the corners of her eyes, just to make sure that those are nice and defined. And I'm going to make sure that I double up on my little white in the eye. So that's just my beginning. Then I want to put some lashes on this girl. You do not have to put lashes on your girl. You don't have to. When they don't have lashes, they tend to look a little more, well, let's see what happens. I'll show you. So I'm going to just grab my Posca and I'll do it on one eye. I'm going to just go in. It's kind of like adding makeup. I'm adding a liner to her, right? So I just added a little bit of a line. When you do that, it immediately grows this thing up into like more of a, there's more of a sultry look here. So that's just a single line. And then if you want to add lashes, the lashes would come up here. But for right now, I'm kind of happy with just this single line for this moment. So I'm going to just leave my single line, but I am going to put it up here as well. So you can just see, I just sort of, it gives her that sort of little sultry eye. It darkens in that area a little bit. And sometimes I like to go in and give it a little bit of a kick of white in here. So I'm just giving a little bit more of a pop. You don't have to do that either, but just going for it a little bit.
Next, I grab my Signo Uniball white pen, and this is just a little trick to add a little extra detail to the eyes. And you may not be able to see this so well in the video, but I am just putting a couple of little lines in the iris part of the eye just to kind of have a little bit of a glow. You'll see it in the end. It just adds a little something extra.
Okay, next thing that I'm going to start playing around with is something in her hair. You can do as much or as little of this as you want, but I am feeling like I want to put some fun stuff in her hair. So I don't even know really what I'm just gonna like go with this a little bit. You do not have to follow me exactly because for real, I don't know what I'm doing right now. But I'm gonna give myself a couple of guidelines, I think. Let me I'm a little scared. I'm not usually scared, but I'm feeling a little scared. Maybe what I just want to do is maybe I just want to put in some little shapes because I like to do shapes. So I'm going to put in like a little rectangle. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to play around a little bit. So I'm making some little rectangular over like almost like a tic tac kind of a shape, rounded edges, sort of. I made a little dot inside. So I don't hate that. So I'm going to play with that a little bit. You do not have to do this shape. If you don't like this shape, don't do this, but pick a shape that works for you. And you can do things like you can trace some of these shapes that we already had. So I just went around a big blue shape. You also don't have to do this in black. You could do this in a different color, but I'm going to start with my black because I'm definitely going to add more color. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to continue that around these shapes, maybe. So I guess I'm just outlining my funny little shapes that I already made here. And if you didn't make big blobby things, you can just kind of make any kind of shapes you want. And maybe you don't want to do these weird shapes. Maybe you want to add stars or X's or I don't know, or put a building in there, or put in whatever you want. There's really no right or wrong. So just kind of enjoy letting your black, I'm using a black marker, like I said, just to outline some fun places. If you have a lot of darkness in your hair, because some of you might, then use a different color. Basically, I'm just playing around here. This took me a good while, probably 15 or 20 minutes, where I just started to play, continue to make shapes. I added some stripes, just some details with my Jelly Roll pen. Next, I decided that I wanted to play around with some circular shapes. Circles are always very relaxing for me, so I just made tons and tons of little circles all over her hair. I also ended up making some stripes and some other patterns in the hair, just let my hand do whatever it wanted to do. And then I decided that I really needed some white to get pulled up. One of the things I think about compositionally is that her eyes are very white, but I needed some, and I like the outline is very white, but I felt like I needed some white interspersed into the painting. Every painting needs to have a little bit of white in it. So I just decided I would fill in those little white circles that I just did. Next, I grabbed my Posca pens and I just randomly went into her hair and I, add some stripes, I added some shapes, and really this is completely up to you. You can do as much or as little as you like, and you don't even have to do this at all. So it was just a fun thing for me to do to play. You can color around your shapes, you can color inside your shapes. Just make sure that you have at least 3 of each thing that you introduce.
Now, I'm someone who likes to add a lot of collage to my pieces. And the way I think about collage is that if something is very plain in the painting, then I might add paper with a lot of color to it. But in this case, because the painting is so busy and it's got so much color, I opted for some paper that was more plain and so that it would stand out, because I think if there was a pattern, it would really get lost. So I'm grabbing paper that is really single color, and I'm looking for tones that are not already in the painting, because otherwise they would get lost. I know this part looks like a lot of futzing around, but it honestly took me probably about a half an hour of moving things and placing them before I actually glued things down. This is one of my favorite parts of the process. You just let it happen, enjoy, and place things where they seem right to you. And eventually something will come out of it that is uniquely yours. There'll never be two that are exactly alike. That's why I love collage so much. When I took a step back from my painting, I looked at the outline and it seemed like it was a little bit like it wasn't bright enough to me. So I just grabbed my Posca marker and I went over the outside, that outside edge again, just darkening it up again. I think it dulled down a little because, I was working on it. But I do like making this slightly thicker line. Kind of worked for me. Then I looked at her, the clothing that I kind of put down with that little bit of paper and a little bit of like a book paper, and it just seemed kind of dull. It didn't tie together with the rest. And so I really gave it a good hard look, and I love the teal in this piece. I love it in her eyes. I love it in her fancy bathing cap hair. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull some of that down just to make the eye move around a little bit more. And so I just drew some simple lines on her collar for her outfit. And I'm really happy with the way that looks. I looked at my piece again and I thought, do I like that plain flat background that's just kind of sitting there? So I ended up getting a brush it's a very long brush that's very floppy, and I grabbed some water and some white paint, mostly water. I made a little slurry. It's very watered down white paint. And then all I do is I'm going to take a little piece of paper and cover her face. And then I'm going to just tap my brush very gently and put some white, it makes basically some like little white polka dots onto the black areas. And then I kind of looked at her face and I thought, oh, you know what she needs? She needs just a little bit of whiteness on her face. And so I thought I'd add a sweet little heart to her face, just like under her cheek. But you don't have to add this, obviously. Some people like it, some people don't. I just thought she needed a little bit of white. And eventually I actually outlined this little heart with a little bit of black. That's it for this girly. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe for more fun art classes.